Hello, dear friends. Dr. Michael Salla and the whistleblower Cory Good are giving many clues as to what may be happening in high places, although nobody has the absolute truth. Opinion piece. China collaborates with the Federation. Statement by Dr. Michael Salla. It has no choice but to do so. It would help build Starfleet. It would fill a global labor shortage. The planet is beginning to wake up. Things will get worse before they get better. Signs of crisis are everywhere. Kiyosaki predicts a market collapse in October. Internet blackout on September 30 for all the devices. Let's start. China is reportedly handing over to the coalition the Duck Fleet bases in Antarctica occupied by China as a result of the Jupiter agreements in order to build space fleets under the Artemis Agreement, says Dr. Michael Salla, although I don't trust his sources very much. The coalition has worked with members of the Federation to clear the Duck Fleet and its allies of their numerous bases. While China is not currently part of the Artemis Agreement, these are the bases of the multinational alliance that has been created within the US at the center. Both China and Russia were initially opposed to the agreements, but after their popularity deepened the Federation to elect the US as their leader for the 14 space nations and aerospace corporations present at July Jupiter meetings, China had to change its position. This was necessary if China was to receive any advanced aerospace technology from the Federation after the Draconian Empire and the Orion Alliance, High Grace, had to leave our solar system. Defense technologies. According to Dr. Michael Salla, the Federation is helping the coalition to build the necessary defense technologies in Earth orbit and on the Moon to cope with the possible return of our former planetary rulers. If China was to benefit from the defense technology shared by the Federation, it was obliged to cooperate, especially when it came to the former Duck Fleet bases in Antarctica, which had been used for nefarious purposes. The agreements with China were very strict. They must agree to relinquish control of certain areas of these bases, and they will have access to stations built by the alliance and corporations. This is important as the goal of the Federation is to unify space programs and countries to work together for the good of humankind and one day join the Federation. It is important to note that once a planet or species joins the Federation, they are obligated to work for peace and balance in the universe and are no longer a threat to the rest of the galaxy. China accepted these terms and is now working alongside the alliance. China is working with the coalition to manufacture these materials and supplies. Much of the human workforce of the Duck Fleet has also opted to be employed by these programs in the interest of keeping their jobs. The technology to build these ships is also available in Antarctica, making it a feasible place to begin production of these materials. It is now clear that one of the incentives that led China to agree to join the US-led alliance was that it would play a key role in building future planetary defense technologies from Antarctic bases previously owned by the Duck Fleet. China's recent history of becoming the world's manufacturing center for consumer products made it a logical choice to do the same in the secretive world of advanced spacecraft constructions. It appears that the corporate consortium that built the DAC fleet, also known as the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate, is now using the same facilities to build interstellar ships for the coalition. After all, corporations are driven by the profit motive and can quickly adapt to new customer needs and new conditions. Labor shortages. Are construction projects causing labor shortages around the world? Thousands of small businesses have closed around the world due to strict shutdowns and other restrictions caused by official government policies. Such business closures would normally result in a surplus of workers in a depressed labor market where wages are contracting as millions compete for fewer available jobs. In the US, however, the opposite has occurred, greatly puzzling economists and financial experts. Today, thousands of companies are desperate for labor and are offering bonuses and incentives for new workers to join. According to Dr. Michael Salla, all this defense construction is being done in secret and in remote places like the moon. Hence the need for hundreds of thousands of workers, especially welders, to build the ships, bases and technologies that would form part of a planetary defense force, also known as a Starfleet. This raises the questions of how so many workers could be secretly sent to the moon. Corey Good's opinion. According to Corey Good, we have many outside groups that want to intervene and are waiting for the opportunity to do so. The dark side is insidious and knows cosmic law, as do the higher density beings in the galaxy. These cosmic laws cannot be broken, so the dark forces found a way to make the population of each planet they want to take over complicit. From the beginning, these forces have used our traumas to manipulate us. The rest of our society and most of the broken were groomed to assume leadership roles over us. We have been complicit as a planetary society. We have allowed the bad guys to control the planet, while we have the power to make the changes from the beginning. There have always been groups that were more awake, but as a whole, as our civilization prefers to hide its eyes from its traumas and responsibilities and remain willfully ignorant of what its leaders are doing. This planet is beginning to awaken and rise up, but this is only the beginning. Once we begin to hold our leaders accountable and not allow them to represent us at the local, national and now planetary levels, we will begin to see our cosmic cousins appear to benevolently intervene. The outside groups are doing what they can, but they are stopped at the door until humankind gets on its knees, stops looking to them to come and save them, and does its part by allowing them to intervene through cosmic law. Positive groups never renounce cosmic law, but work within its limits to prevent karmic entanglements that would be detrimental to their own civilization, each in varying degrees of development. These are very confusing times, and most people make decisions out of fear. I see so many people who are behaving in a reactionary manner and no longer responding or communicating. People are looking for hopeful information when they should be looking for useful information. I let everyone know that these energies were coming, and as I hit each wave, I have told everyone that things will get worse before they get better. I say it again, they will only rise up after the masses who remain asleep wake up in shock from the negative things that have been happening. Financial collapse. Robert Kiyosaki predicts a big crash in financial markets in October. The author of the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad warns that gold, silver and Bitcoin prices could also collapse. Investor and author Robert Kiyosaki, author of the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, has predicted a big crash in the stock markets in October. On his Twitter account, Kiyosaki wrote that such a plunge would occur due to fixed income and short-term securities issued by the Fed and the Treasury Department. The investor foresees that gold, silver and Bitcoin may also collapse. Given that scenario, the writer argues that cash will be the best option for making any trades following the market crash. In another tweet published this Monday, Kiyosaki assures not to trust financial institutions or Wall Street, due to cases such as the recent scandal of senior officials of the Fed who invested personally in the same type of shares as those acquired by that entity, which brought them large profits. In quotes, "We would go to jail for what they did," criticized the businessman, pointing out that he prefers to bet on gold, silver and Bitcoin, contradicting other statements. On the other hand, last week Kiyosaki posted on Twitter that the shutdown is coming of the federal government due to lack of money. Democrats blame Republicans for the problem, and Chinese real estate giant Evergrande is also out of money, he noted. Get the message? Buy gold, silver, Bitcoin, Ethereum before the biggest collapse in history, he used at the time. World stock markets fall. Global stocks fell for a third straight day on Tuesday, with technology share plunging, as anxiety over when central banks might raise interest rates led to a rise in bond yields on both sides of the Atlantic. Wall Street plunges. Stocks on the New York Stock Exchange fell in a broad wave of selling on Tuesday, as the upward trajectory of Treasury yields and rising concerns about inflation kept risk appetite and forced investors to flee the stock market. Spanish stock market falls 2.59%, second worst performance of the year, and drops below 8,800 points. The Spanish stock market fell 2.59% on Tuesday, the second biggest drop for the year, and lost the 8,800 point mark, affected by the decline in international markets and the drop in oil, according to market data. Consumers' confidence hit 7-month low. Consumer confidence fell to a 7-month low in September, as the downturn deepened concerns about the near-term outlook for the economy, coinciding with expectation of slowdown in growth in the third quarter. Treasury yields soared in the highest levels since early 2020, triggering a global sell-off in bonds driven by rising energy costs and the speculation that the Fed will begin tapering its massive debt purchases. Dollar rises to 10.5-month high. The dollar rose to its highest level in more than 10 months on Tuesday, tracking rising Treasury yields as investors expected the Fed to reduce asset purchases in November, and an interest rate hike is likely to follow. Canadian dollar falls from 3-week high. The Canadian dollar weakened against the US dollar on Tuesday. on a move higher in treasuries as yields weighted on investor confidence, with the Canadian dollar pulling back from its strongest level in nearly 3 weeks. Black Swan. Gold falls to a 1.5-month low. Gold prices fell to 1.5-month low on Tuesday as a firmer dollar and rising treasury bond yields weighted on the metal safe haven appeal. Why isn't gold going up? The question on many people's minds at the moment is, why isn't gold going to the moon? Gold is an inflation hedge, and we are experiencing inflation. The Fed says it is transitory, but the Fed and the government don't have a good track record concerning transitory. Palantir predicts a black swan crash. Palantir talks about preparing for one and what it could mean for your money and our future. They just bought $50 million worth of gold bullion, and we can expect them to do it for a serious reason. No one knows for sure what the reason is, but there is speculation that it could have to do with cyber attacks on runaway inflation. Federal debt. Senate Republicans block debt limit increase again. Senate Republicans on Tuesday blocked a new attempt by Democrats to abet a potentially crippling credit default, raising questions about whether partisan tensions in Congress will threaten the nation's economy. In a 48-50 vote on Monday, September 27th, Senate Republicans blocked a bill that would fund the government and suspend the federal debt limit. Without money to operate, the government would now shut down on Thursday, September 30th. Yellen says could run out of cash by October 18th. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen told lawmakers Tuesday that the government could run out of cash by October 18th unless Congress acts to lift the federal debt limit before the Treasury exhausts its efforts to conserve resources. Treasury Secretary wants Congress has 3 weeks before it stops paying its debts. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen once again wanted Congress to raise the U.S. federal debt limit by October 18th before previously implemented extraordinary measures run out. J.P. Morgan warns that a default would be catastrophic. J.P. Morgan Chase & Co. has begun preparing for the possibility of the U.S. reaching its debt limit, Chief Executive Jamie Dimon said Tuesday, adding that he nevertheless expected policymakers to find a solution to avoid such a potentially catastrophic event. Important date, September 30th. Benjamin Fulford's latest newsletter is very interesting. It discusses a possible surrender of the tax side before September 30th. It is an important date. The US must pay or default on its huge debt by that date. USA. 2 top central bankers resign. The presidents of the Federal Reserve Banks of Boston and Dallas are stepping down after recent reports of potentially unethical investments in 2020 generated criticisms and prompted the Fed to launch an ethics review. Robert Kaplan of Dallas followed Boston's Eric Rosengren in announcing an early retirement on Monday. Both executives are 64 years, a year ahead of the mandatory retirement age at the Fed. Defunding the police helped drive the biggest murder spike since the Kennedy era. Murders rose 30% in 2020. Liberal policy has caused perfect storm of violent crime that promises to continue. Something is out of control on the street. Energy crisis. Natural gas rises to 7-year high. US natural gas futures rose more than 2% to a 7-year high on Tuesday as record global gas prices keep demand for liquefied natural gas exports strong. European gas prices hit all-time high. Natural gas prices in Europe hit record highs in trading Tuesday, surpassing $1,000 per 1,000 cubic meters for the first time in history. European Union lawmakers back methane gas crackdown. The European Parliament's Environment Committee on Tuesday backed European plans to make companies and countries reduce their methane emissions, indicating lawmakers are likely to back upcoming legislation to clamp down on the potent greenhouse gas. Germany maintains recovery despite bottlenecks. The Bundesbank notes that the German economy is maintaining its recovery despite supply bottlenecks for some products, and thanks to strong growth in private consumption and services. OPEC expects global oil demand to stop growing after 2035. Global demand for crude oil will stop growing after 2035, the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries predicted in its annual World Oil Outlook report. Spain. Lava from the volcano reaches the sea. There is no certainty about how long the eruption will last, although a range of 24 to 84 days is estimated. This Tuesday, lava from the Cumbre Vieja volcano of the Canary island of La Palma, Spain, reached the sea after it erupted last Sunday evening, September 19. Since then, the volcano has expelled more than 46 million cubic meters of lava, which have gradually advanced towards the Atlantic at more than 1,000 degrees Celsius. The volcano becomes a tourist attraction. In addition to journalists, scientists, and other professionals, curious visitors are arriving on the island of La Palma to see the Cumbre Vieja eruption up close. The hotel rooms are 94% full. The civil guard has shown its dissatisfaction with the massive arrivals, which generate more traffic than usual on the roads. But for many, both Spaniards and foreigners, the experience is unique. Spain pledges aid to La Palma. Spain classified La Palma as a disaster zone on Tuesday, a move that will trigger financial support for the island, where a volcanic eruption destroyed buildings and crops over the past 9 days. Afghanistan. The Spanish head of rescue in Afghanistan regrets all the people left there. Spain had planned to evacuate 400 Afghans, and in the end it was 2,000. A success in terms of numbers that doesn't reflect the number of people left there. But, it quotes again, "We were limited in time," regrets Colonel Alfonso Álvarez Planelles, head of the rescue operation of collaborators in Afghanistan. Afghan army collapse took us by surprise, Defense Secretary says. Lloyd Austin told Congress on Tuesday that the sudden collapse of the Afghan army took the Pentagon by surprise, as military leaders faced a contentious Senate hearing on how and why the U.S. lost its longest war. U.S. didn't inform Afghan military of its plan to sneak out of Bagram. The Pentagon made the decision to quietly withdraw from Bagram Air Base according to a White House approved timetable, and did so in secret without warning Afghan partners in advance because of fears that the Taliban would launch attacks on the base if they discovered its defenses were weakened. Trump told Putin he would act a little tougher on him when the cameras were closed. The former president spent more than 3 years of his 4-year term defending himself against discredited claims that he had colluded with the Kremlin to win the 2016 election, and introduced a series of policies hostile to Moscow, ranging from sanctions to a NATO build-up near Russia's borders, to try to prove he has not a Russian agent. China energy crisis will start global race for coal imports. China's energy crisis appears to be driving it to import more coal from a wider range of producers, putting it in competition with European and Indian buyers, who are also buying more of the dirtier fossil fuel. China's energy crisis sets off alarm bells, calls for more coal. As a severe energy crisis rocks the industrial heartland in northeast China, top officials face mounting pressure from alarmed citizens to increase coal imports quickly to keep the lights on, factories open, and even water supplies flowing. China's coal shortage means higher prices for the world. China, the world's top coal consumer, urgently needs more supply and is willing to pay any price, a move that threatens to leave less fuel for energy-hungry rivals. China's electricity crisis is the latest threat to the world's supply chain. China's energy crisis is shaping up to be the latest shock to global supply chains as factories in the world's biggest exporter are forced to conserve energy by curbing production. The Balkans. Kosovo standoff going from bad to worse. Wants Russia calling on NATO to escalate and avoid military conflict with Serbia. Strained relations between Serbia and the breakaway region of Kosovo worsen. Moscow has said the West is not stepping up to prevent an all-out conflict from erupting and avoid a return to bloody fighting. 10 Albanians arrested in Kosovo after attacking Serbs as ethnic tensions rise. Police in self-proclaimed Kosovo say they have arrested 10 Albanian citizens for attacking ethnic Serbs. Ethnic tensions have escalated in the Serb separatist region, with Serbia, Russia and NATO getting involved. The Balkan Tinder. Serbia's president criticizes the world's thunderous silence on the occupation of northern Kosovo as tensions rise in the separatist region. New focus of tension in Europe. Ukraine and Hungary clash over gas. After the diplomatic crisis that Ukraine and Hungary staged in 2018, which resulted in the reciprocal expulsion of consuls, now the two European countries clash over gas. Everything happens after Hungary signed a contract with Gazprom, the Russian gas giant, to receive 4.5 billion cubic meters per year of the fuel for 15 years. Internet blackout on September 30th. The security license of millions of electronic devices with Internet access will expire on September 30th, making it possible for them to connect. The identity certificate that will expire that day is the DST root ZAX3, So, video game consoles, cell phones, Mac and Microsoft computers, reading devices and televisions at least, will lose their connectivity due to the loss of validity of their certificates before the Internet security rules. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.